Alright, so it's time to tackle the handle. And this is a quick lesson in, I would say, figuring out that this is not really that easy to do by hand. What's that, you say? Drilling a straight hole through the bottom end of a dowel with a hand crank drill? Doesn't seem all that easy? Apparently, I learned that lesson this way. So aside from it being tricky to put the hole in the right spot, let alone go straight down, let alone work within the tolerances that I have, I knocked the ever-loving fuck out of my camera. Anyhow, I managed to go down straight-ish, but this is probably not the method that I would continue to use because it just didn't have favorable results, and this happened. Hole? Sure. Hole? Sure. So, that piece of wood's dead to me. Goodbye. And the piece of wood that I ended up going with, I believe is a piece of rosewood, and it's gorgeous. So, not a terrible trade-off. The only extra work that I have to do is a lot, and the results are worth it. So, live and learn. Keep the same length handle. Cut out a little rectangle. Not my thumb. Also, after doing this, I upgraded my saws. I absolutely detest this saw because those teeth, while they're wide set apart, it's designed after a Japanese saw. What it's not is it's not a rip cut blade. Or the teeth aren't set up for rip cutting, they're set up for cross cuts. Just very rough cross cuts. So this is, at 4 times speed, it has taken me far longer than it should to get as far down as I do. The job gets done. Honestly, the more that I look at it, I'm pretty sure that I need to get a better vise setup because that little guy, he's starting to get right about the limit of what I can abuse it through. Ta-da! And now I need to cut it in half because we're going to make a sandwich. I'm not drilling a hole straight down. Especially not on a piece of wood that's this pretty, with a near 80% chance of failure. Instead, I'm going to cut it out, make a recess for the blade tang to sit in, and then glue it in like that. Easy as pie. Is pie easy? Does anybody want to have a 45-minute conversation about how pie isn't that easy? No? Alright, fine. So, one rip cut to another rip cut. Same saw. Same internal... Oh, different saw. I actually ended up picking a different saw. But this method, I flip it over back and forth to get a better and more consistent cut. Sorry. This is a little while ago now, and I'm just trying to keep my memory straight. But the idea of switching back and forth between each side is really for the sake of keeping the cut as relatively straight as possible, since it all has to sandwich back together anyway. And I get to keep it low in the vise, or as low in the vise as I need it to be. Which also helps. Now there's a different part of me that wants to just rip it in half, but that leaves a little more meat than I want. to have to sand off. This way the saw curve stays consistent. Hey. And below that piece of sandpaper I have a diamond plate, which is honestly really, really flat. And now, if anybody sees this and they're like, well, that's not as flat as it could be, you're 100% correct. But it's as flat as I need it to be. .80 grit sandpaper will also cause the front and back of the handle scales to round up at the edges if you're not careful. So you have to flip and change how you sand every here and there. I managed to do a good enough job that that little bit of corner rounding doesn't matter. So I'm happy with it. Something that also has to happen is the top has to be flat and square. At least flat, but square to the sides is ideal. So I have the biggest, angriest file that I have. It works. And I want it flat specifically because the bolster that goes on top of it needs a good place to rest. And if there's any gaps, it's going to show up in the epoxy when it gets glued together. Speaking of bolsters, let me bolster your attention to... Alright. I made a really crude center finder and made a really terrible set of center marks and decided to overcommit. 1 time, 2 times. This also ends up working out, but not despite my best efforts. Oh, this was a giant pain in the ass. Again, hand crank drill. And you can see little copper bits in the teeth. It's because that drill bit was just a smidge too small. And the idea that I had in my head was that I would drill it with a hole that's roughly the same size as my piece, or my blade, and then I could just expand that hole. Well, technically, kind of, yes, that does work, but only if you're good. So eventually I get through and just linger on a shot where nothing's happening. Great. There it is. And welcome to the worst punched drilled hole that I've done yet, except for the one at the very beginning of this video. Get down. But it really doesn't hurt nothing, because I can take that and expand it with, let's see, yeah, I tried a jeweler saw first, with mixed results. It certainly saws, and I certainly broke the blade about 4 different times. Like, it works, yes. Could I have done it better? Absolutely. Anyhow, the power Dremel tool ends up working really well and really fast, and taking off too much material. So it just made me change how I approached. It made me change how I approached making the hole to begin with. And this is just me at normal speed with no differences. I'm not speeding anything up. Of course I fucking am. It's going fast. Once the hand files get in there, that's probably one of my favorite things, is hand filing brass. I'm pretty sure I also enjoy hand filing copper, I just don't have as many opportunities to do so. Since brass has got a lot of copper in it, I'm pretty happy with, never mind. So yeah, I'm getting it into the ballpark. That weird noise is me blowing, but for some reason the audio gets really, really weird about it. And by just the absolute hair of nothing, I managed to get it. I managed to get it to fit. Looking back at it, I'm still not entirely sure how. Other than going slowly and methodically. So now I would like to apologize to your ear holes. This sucks. So the rosewood is exceedingly hard compared to, I don't know, other things that are hard that you still drill through. And I want to make sure that I don't start a fire on the bench, because nobody wins if everything gets set on fire. Even if you like fire, you still have to control it. So my approach doesn't change all that much, but I take smaller bites with the little depth gauge stopper, which is really one of the worst tools. My camera keeps falling. It's one of the worst, worst fitting and least flat things that I've used in conjunction with a Dremel tool. It's awful, but it's all I got. I'm doing some damage to the to that inside part so that the Dremel has less work that it has to do. Again, it's all in interest of keeping everything happy and going easy and not starting a fire. And transferring it to the other side, I will spare you having to see me do that again. What I will apparently not spare you is hand filing some details into the bolster. I lost some footage, or it just doesn't exist, of me starting this, but imagine me making this pseudo gear pattern around the whole top. Same thing. After filing so much steel, brass is so buttery. Sorry for saying buttery. Not that sorry, apparently. Next time I do this, I will actually mark things out, because, again, I get lucky and it works out how the pattern is. But getting lucky is not really how you want to have to go about things. Luck isn't good or bad, luck is luck. It's just what happens in context. If this was bad luck, it would probably be in the video as well, like the beginning. But it's a neat little piece, and I like what it did to the end product. Now, I don't know what you're saying to yourself, but that is a diamond file. that is not. What I did learn is that those little needle files are really, really hard. So it's able to bite into and cut a hardened tempered steel blade that we hardness tested to almost 65 or just at 65 HRC. That file's super hard, but I think it can get away with it because it's not huge. Anyway, I'm going on a rant. So everything fits nicely. And my little handle pieces are just about ready to acetone wipe down and wood glue together. I actually really like using wood glue when I get a chance to, because it's wood on wood. Wood glue is what I would choose probably every time I could. I would not choose wood glue in place of epoxy for putting the blade in, or gluing the blade up. What this little vise is good for is what it's good for. It was very nice to just put it in there and not think too much about it. With a little support on the end, of course. So, that's pretty much it. Next time, we actually shape the handle, because it's not going to be a big old square, and to not entirely betray the Sharpie inspiration, it's going to get rounded, and I use a new tool for that I've never used, and I like it a lot. It all still fits. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'm going to try and finish this series up soon.